2026 Stanley Cup Final begins tonight. Hello, everyone. This is Frankly Hockey Playoff Edition. That is Frank Seravalli, the hockey insider. Boots on the ground in Raleigh, North Carolina. The 68th unique matchup in Stanley Cup Final playoff history, Frank. Both teams are 1-1 in final appearances. Vegas lost 2018 to Washington, won in 23 against Florida. Carolina lost in 0-2 to Detroit and won 0-6 in against Edmonton in 2006. What are the vibes in Raleigh?
They are electric. It is heating up here as both of these teams, as you mentioned, are seeking their second Stanley Cup in franchise history. And look, the tailgaters are just going to start flooding into the parking lots here at Lenovo Center in just a few hours. And no doubt they will be fired up for tonight's game. 8 p.m. puck drop on ABC, Sportsnet in Canada. And look, they've been waiting for a long time for this team to break through again. They've been knocking on the door, Butchie, for the last handful of years. And here they are. And it kind of feels like a team that's primed for action.
So once again, Victory Plus, YouTube X, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, stick, tap, and hug. It is Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2026. Happy birthday, Russ Courtnall, 61 years old, 297 career goals. I once played a round of golf at Sherwood Country Club with Russ, Ray Ferraro, and Wayne Gretzky. 1,599 career goals. That's got to be up there. He's married to Paris Vaughn, Sarah Vaughn's daughter, the great jazz singer, a legend. He's now selling some real estate in Idaho in the summertime. So great to talk with Russ today. Happy birthday, Lou Nanne, 85, the legend up in Minnesota. Larry Robinson is 75, Frank. 6 cups, 2 Norris trophies. Speaking of Norris trophies, hold on a second. And 958 points. And a cup as a coach. And Brett Sutter, son of Daryl, 60 NHL games is 39. And that takes us to Franks and Beans, Frank. And moments ago, it was announced this year's Norris Trophy winner is Zach Werenski, 5th U.S.-born winner. My ballot was Zach 1, Quinn 2, Bouchard 3, Cale Makar 4, Lane Hudson 5.
Interesting. I did not have Zach Werenski 1. I was one of the 12 voters that had Evan Bouchard as number 1 on his ballot. And part of it came down to, for me, Zach Werenski was so unbelievable all season long. He sputtered as the Columbus Blue Jackets collapsed around him over those last 12 games. I weighted it more heavily toward, Bouchard struggled for his first 12 games of the season, but when it matters most, you need your team to get into the playoffs. And Werenski led that team in scoring all year. Great year, unbelievable year. It just felt like he kind of ran out of gas in what ended up being a pretty long year with a lot of heavy lifting and the Olympics.
Darlene finished, Makar finished 2nd. Darlene finished 3rd. Bouchard 4th. Sider 5th in the official vote when you tally all the votes together.
Yeah, and you mentioned, by the way, happy birthday to Larry Robinson. A connection here to this Cup final, of course. He was hired with 8 games remaining in 2000. The Devils go on to win. John Tortorella opens Game 1 tonight. Hired with 8 games remaining in the season, he gets his team to the Cup final.
Good job. Good synergy job by you right there. I missed that one. By the way, Jeremy Lauzon's playing tonight, John Tortorella says. That's interesting. Who's out, Frank? Do you know?
The Vegas Golden Knights, you can see them a little bit below me here. They are still on the ice for morning skate. Jeremy Lauzon in, first time with a completely healthy lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights since opening night of the season, which is a crazy stat. And also one reason why this Cup final, I think, has a little extra juice. Usually we get to this point in the playoffs and teams are run down. The Carolina Hurricanes have played one more game than the bare minimum. And the Vegas Golden Knights arrive at 12-4. They're not beaten down, obviously healthy.
Yeah.
We're going to have an electric Cup final from that perspective, that they are healthy and ready to go, not to beat up.
Another great point by Frank. Clearly on his game. It's about time. We'll get to the full preview, our predictions, speculate to accumulate from Frank. We always like to hear that. But first, some more Franks and Beans, Frank, just to go through some notes. Looks like Chris McFarland's going to get permission to talk to Nashville.
He has received permission, and in fact, they've already met. Chris McFarland and Nashville Predators owner Bill Haslam met on Monday night, I believe, in Nashville. And the real interesting part for me is twofold. One, is Colorado allowing him to go on this fishing expedition to then come back and juice their own offer to keep him? Or two, are they willingly letting him walk out the door, will replace him as part of an overhaul that for a team that got swept in the Western Conference Final perhaps is looking for a little bit of change? And if he is leaving, what is that title and role going to be? It's not going to be GM. You're not going to just poach another team's general manager. It's going to have to probably likely be for a dual role of either GM and president of hockey ops holding all the titles, or maybe even elevated above that as president of hockey ops and Chris McFarland is running the show in Nashville. Look, Nashville's waited a long time for this. This job has been open since February when Barry Trotz announced that he would be stepping down. And with that, well, the draft combine has already started. Jeff Kelty is running the Nashville Predators combine in Buffalo as we speak as the assistant GM and director of amateur scouting. It's like beyond time. They needed to hire their next GM yesterday. So Chris McFarland, having worked for a current team, makes sense while they've waited this long to see the Avs dispatched from the playoffs. But man, if it's a no from Chris McFarland, the Nashville Predators have really set themselves back in terms of the timeline to get things moving forward.
You were the first to throw out there yesterday, Manny Malhotra in Vancouver.
Yeah, not a shock. I mean, we knew that Manny Malhotra as the internal candidate, they didn't open it up and conduct interviews, that he was obviously being taken very seriously. And this just makes sense all the way around. Rebuilding team, that one of the first things that Henrik and Daniel Sedin mentioned when they took over with Ryan Johnson is that they want to change the culture. How do you get that? You elevate a culture guy. And Manny Malhotra has been that. He has NHL experience, not just playing, but also as an assistant coach, guided the Abbotsford Canucks to a Calder Cup, working with Ryan Johnson day in and day out, who is the GM of that team. So they have a history. He was a teammate of the Sedins. They're comfortable with him and know him. And this is the guy that it seemed like the Canucks marketplace and fan base really wanted. So now they've got him. And there's going to be some pain here, but at least they know that they're resetting things with the right guy from Jump Street. The only question that remains, not just how will Manny fill out his staff and his bench, but also what happens now at the draft. Because if Caleb Malhotra, which we expect him to be there at number 3, will they take the coach's son? Will they pass on him? I guess part of it will also depend on who the first 2 off the board are.
Yeah, they're obligated to take the best player. And if they think he's the best player, they should take him. But like you said, we shall see. Chicago dealt the signing rights to 2024 third-round pick Jack Pridham to Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay gets a young prospect for a 2027 third-round pick. Again, Chicago's got lots of young guys. If a young guy doesn't see a path, they have this option to wait and say, I'm not going to sign. I can report that he's going to Denver, Frank, to play for David Carl and the Denver Pioneers. Legit speed, right-handed shot who can score. He's a winner. Denver only had 2 right-hand shots in their forward group last season. So David Carl, very excited to get Jack Pridham.
And he had a great Memorial Cup and an OHL playoffs for the Kitchener Rangers. He's a guy that I saw in varying prospect rankings, somewhere between 10th and 14th in the Blackhawks organization. He kind of had lesser numbers, a similar type player to Nick Lardis, a winger who's already in their system. He didn't really see a fit moving forward in terms of trying to break through. Now, to go to a Tampa Bay organization, which doesn't have as many prospects, and he also has that connection from playing in Kitchener with Sam O'Reilly, who's in the organization, that's a strong connection. I'm interested to see how Jack Pridham's game can grow at Denver because he's got the speed, as you mentioned, he's got the shot. But Jack Pridham is not known as a player who goes to the interior to make hard plays. And until he adds that, he's a bit of a one-dimensional player that's going to need to really suss that out in order to make it and be a successful NHLer.
Judd Brackett, after 6 seasons in Minnesota, assistant GM in Toronto, Frank?
He is, and also Freddie Hamilton comes in as a chief of staff, which is they're the first team in the NHL to hire specifically for a hockey operations chief of staff. Now, someone might say this is a very business-like role. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are a business. That's one thing that gets lost to me in all of these hockey ops discussions is how do you operate this more like a business instead of like the toy department, which is how a lot of NHL teams operate. And he comes in not just as a former drafted player and pro hockey player, but got his MBA from Yale. Really sharp guy, Dougie Hamilton's brother. So interested to see how he shapes that role, the first of his kind in the NHL, and a very large Toronto Maple Leaf staff. He comes in, is going to have a seat at the table, and is going to help steer and organize this from a process perspective. So Judd Brackett's going to have the amateur scouting side covered. He wasn't going back to Minnesota. He was looking for a more elevated role. The Wild already have their assistant GM, so he comes to Toronto in that elevated role and is very highly regarded in scouting circles.
Brendan Gallagher's 14-year run looks like it's over, Frank. Will there be a market for him?
There will be a market. The Montreal Canadiens aren't going to get much, if anything, in return. Some teams are going to try and force them, hey, will you add a sweetener? But for the cap environment that we're in right now, there's so many teams that have cap space. I can't think of a better team. We just talked about culture with the Vancouver Canucks. Bring him home to Vancouver, where he was a Vancouver Giant. They don't have any cap considerations. You're not going to have to give up anything for him. And 1 year at $6+ million, that's not going to be a problem for them on their cap either. I think he's a really strong fit there, and someone else will view him in the same way. The Canadiens will just be happy after a great decade plus of service to salute Brendan Gallagher on the way out, say thanks for the memories, but hey, we just don't really have the room.
Penguins ownership transition is almost done. The Hoffman Group should take over sometime this month, Frank. The question is, will Mario Lemieux reappear in any way? A role, possibly minority owner? Does he have a little chunk? The Penguins about to transition.
Well, my understanding is that Mario Lemieux has always maintained a very small chunk, even after the sale to Fenway Sports Group. I don't know what the percentage is, but didn't really get along great for whatever reason. I don't know why they decided to ostracize or make unhappy at a certain point in time. I was told that it had actually something to do with the transaction itself, that he was turned off by the way that they operated the business. So he was technically a partner, a minority partner, but wasn't around the team. The Pittsburgh Penguins are better when Mario Lemieux is around. And so I think that part would be interesting to see if he retains that small chunk moving forward, to just be a little bit more present, because he doesn't need to say a whole lot, but just having him around, Les Magnifiques, that is pretty special.
And a couple more Franks and Beans before we get to the Stanley Cup preview. Kristen Kirsch, the San Jose prospect. Great run for Kitchener at the Memorial Cup. 4-0, .952 save percentage. He's going to Quinnipiac, the 4th-round pick of the Sharks. So he'll play for a very good, well-coached Quinnipiac college team. You can see him next year as he continues to develop. And obviously, San Jose, one of the pieces is identifying a great goaltender. They obviously have prospects and vets. We'll see what happens there. And the Kraken, Frank, they add Melinda French Gates as a minority investor.
Yeah, that was a surprise. Did not see that coming. Did not see Melinda French Gates as a potential sports owner. But nonetheless, really interesting to see where the Kraken, as they continue to build this juggernaut of not just a sports organization, but like they want to be the winning bid for the NBA. So it's not just getting into to have a seat at the table with the Kraken. They want that next NBA expansion team to play at their arena, Climate Pledge Arena, and that would really change the dynamic, of course, that infusion of cash from someone that has a whole heck of a lot of it.
Shane Doan in Winnipeg, Frank?
I don't know anything about that. What have you heard?
Okay, they had some talks apparently, so that's kind of interesting. He's a kind of guy you always like to have in your organization. So we'll see if anything happens there.
Anytime you can add some counsel of someone as level-headed and intelligent as Shane Doan, not to mention whatever character he can lend to your players and staff, I can't imagine that's a bad thing.
And then finally, here are the 4 NHL referees for the Stanley Cup Final. Wes McCauley, Chris Rooney, Garrett Rank, Jean Hebert. It'll be McCauley and Rooney working Game 1 tonight between the Canes and Golden Knights, and that takes us right to Game 1. Stanley Cup Final tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, Sportsnet and ABC. Of course, the Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd time in franchise history. They won it in 2006. Fewest combined losses, Vegas and Carolina, by teams entering the Cup Final since 87 when they moved to the 4 best-of-7 series. Game 1 is so important, Frank. Teams that win game one win 76% of the time. It's a huge game one. The Golden Knights have won 8 of their last 9 game ones. They are starting on time. Anderson and Hart have both played every minute of the playoffs for their teams, co-leading the NHL, obviously, in wins with 12. And among the goalies who played at least 5 this postseason, Anderson is first in save percentage, Hart is second. Anderson first in goals against, Hart is fourth. Does path to the Cup final matter, Frank?
Well, that's what we're going to determine here, because a lot of people have looked at this run that the Carolina Hurricanes have been on, and they do it with a side eye. They say, okay, great, you beat the Sens in a sweep, and then you dispatch a Flyers team that, you know, back in March around the trade deadline had a 3.8% shot to make it to the playoffs. And then you beat a tired Canadiens team that had gone the distance for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, 7 games apiece. They slayed some dragons in the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Buffalo Sabres, and you knock them out in 5 after getting punched in the face once after a 12-day layoff. So is this Canes team really battle tested? That's the question that people ask. And we're going to find out, because Vegas has certainly had the more difficult of the 2 paths to get to this point in time. And the funny thing is, their incredibly surprising sweep of the Colorado Avalanche, no one saw that coming. Their 4 losses, 12-4, came against the Anaheim Ducks and the Utah Mammoth, which is relatively surprising in its own right. So does that matchup, that difficult conference final matchup, even though they swept it for Vegas, how much will that help them in this quest to beat Carolina, who, let's face it, just hasn't faced a team of Vegas's caliber to this point in time, and they're going to have to adjust to that part of it, let alone how well the Vegas Golden Knights can think their way through Carolina's pressure.
And I'm sure, Canes fans can counter that with, well, Vegas played a Utah team that really dipped in the waters for the first time in the postseason, and a kind of a smallish team, maybe a great matchup for them, and maybe for a lot of teams. Then they played Anaheim, kind of run and gun, trying to learn to play both ways. Their best players are their younger players, definitely a veteran core, but their best players were certainly that. And neither goaltenders, the first 2 rounds, really put up much of a fight in the end. And then they had no Cale Makar for Colorado, and then really no McKinnon for game 3. So that was almost a freebie for them when that happened. And so they could look at it that way, Frank, and counter maybe Vegas's path in the end was actually a pretty good one too.
And will either of those things matter, though?
Right. And that's why it's hard to forecast, right? That's what makes it difficult. But I think clearly, as we look at these 2 teams and these numbers right here, these are 2 aggressive, well-coached. They're really similar, Frank. Like, there's a lot of similar traits here.
There is, and I think that's what makes this Cup final, more than so many others that we've seen of late, one of the harder ones to predict.
Yes.
I truly believe that this is a coin flip series, and maybe that game 1 stat holds up. Maybe the team that can get the edge first, just the first one to beat you to the punch, in that case will have the upper hand in terms of dictating how the series plays out after that. But I don't have a really good sense, because both these teams, as you mentioned, Carolina notoriously starts on time, not just in series, getting themselves 1 game and 2 game leads, but also in games themselves. They generally score in the first few minutes because they're ready to play right from Jump Street. Vegas has a lot of that too, and it's hard to really differentiate who has an advantage in some of these situations.
Yeah, Vegas has won 8 of their last 9 game ones. Their only loss was 2025, second round to the Oilers, and they lost that series in 5. And again, to put this in baseball terms, you lose game 1, you become a 240 hitter against a good pitcher. So that's what you're up against. Again, 240s hitters can get hits. Bucky Dent hit a home run once upon a time, but it's tougher. It doesn't usually happen. So again, I think there's game 7 vibes tonight. You mentioned they're well rested. They know how important it is to win game 1. They know the numbers, and I just think it's going to be an absolute collision early 10 minutes tonight. I can't wait to see. I really do think there's game 7 vibes. And of course, there's so many underlying stories to this final. It's rich for someone like you, Frank, to cover and write about and talk about. Gone for gold, now chasing silver. We are guaranteed an Olympic gold Stanley Cup double from a player. We have Eichel and Hannafin on Vegas, Slavin for Carolina. This has happened before, of course. Only American ever to do it was Ken Morrow, the first to do it back in 1980. Then Yzerman, Shanahan, Keith, Seabrook, Taves, Doughty, and Carter. There's the list right there. Cup, Olympic gold in the same year. It's an amazing double. And again, we're guaranteed one. Even Torch, as a coach, assistant coach, and head coach here, would experience that euphoria only 4 months apart. And so that's a really cool underlying story here. And obviously, Eichel and Hannafin can join Morrow, Frank, as U.S.-born double winners.
Could you imagine if Jack Eichel also takes home the Conn Smythe Trophy? Probably a little bit of an outside shot heading in if we're handicapping it honestly, but what a year, what a calendar year that would be for anyone on planet Earth, let alone a hockey player at the pinnacle, to achieve all those things in one shot in a 6-month span is incredibly special. And so, yeah, I think this storyline stands out just because there's also something to learning how and knowing how to win. And we'll talk about the experience factor in a second as well, because look, this Vegas team having gotten here in 2023 and won, and for a couple of these guys, this is their third trip to the Cup final. It's new. It's an experience. It's different. There's different pressure. There's different expectations. There's different obligations. We just had media day yesterday at the Cup final. Those Carolina players, for the most part, are experiencing that for the first time. The eyeballs, the ticket requests. It's not quite to the level of a Super Bowl or anything like that, as you see the 11 players on Vegas that have won a Stanley Cup and only 2 with the Carolina Hurricanes, and neither of them, of course, won it here. Stahl was in Pittsburgh early on in his career, and William Carrier was in Vegas and won with the team that he's now facing. I think that experience factor is real. And so whether you've gotten that taste of what it's like to get to the precipice and win in a winner-take-all Olympics, as we just saw, or whether you've gotten to the top of the mountain here in the Stanley Cup, that's a different type of scenario. And I think that means something moving forward for these guys that have gone there and done it.
For sure. And again, all 3 American-born who have the chance to do that. Eichel and Hannafin are Massachusetts natives right outside Boston. And, of course, Slavin, the Colorado native who went to Colorado College. All 3 played college hockey as well. Boston College, Boston University, Colorado College. So, again, it's going to be a great year for USA Hockey again, as one of their own is going to win a gold medal and a Stanley Cup in the same year. Slavin, Hannafin, and Eichel. Well, this is a chess match, of course. It's John Tortorella. He's won a cup before as a coach 22 years ago, 2004. Rod Brind'Amour won a cup before as a player, 2006. He took over this team. He's made the playoffs every year. He's won a playoff series every year, Rod Brind'Amour, but won. But it was trying to get to the Stanley Cup final. Conference finals wasn't a problem. He did that in year 1. Did it again, obviously, the last couple of years, and here he is now. He finally made that last hurdle, but now it's Tortorella, it's Brind'Amour, and one reason why, Frank, these 2 teams start on time is because their coaches start on time. They will not let them not start on time.
No, there's no room for there's no room on the margins for either one of these 2 guys to allow something like that. And so that's also part of what makes this Cup final so interesting is just the difference between these 2 coaches. Both of them are very intense. Both of them are no nonsense. And I don't know if there's a true edge here. Rod Brind'Amour's won as a player. John Tortorella has done this as a coach 22 years ago. This gap between Cup final appearances is the largest in NHL history. So there's storylines that certainly this has been a quest for Rod Brind'Amour. Much in the same way that getting a second one has been a long process for John Tortorella. I think this has been, to me, John Tortorella's most impressive coaching job. And the reason for that is the perception and the self-awareness that he entered the situation with. 8 games remaining in the season. You're not going to be able to come in and make a whole bunch of changes and meld this team into what you want them to be. Your job was to come in, get out of the way, as he put it, and also pump them up again. Give them some confidence, because you can't win without that confidence. The breath of fresh air that he's provided, I don't think anyone's ever really confused him or his personality for being a teddy bear. But the difference between him and Bruce Cassidy was the breath of fresh air that this Vegas team needed. And on the other side of that has been this Rod Brind'Amour relentless approach, detailed, intense, in your face. Taylor Hall was talking about this yesterday at Media Day, that he felt like when he arrived in Carolina from Chicago that he couldn't play the way Rod Brind'Amour wanted him to play because he wasn't in good enough shape. I thought that was a fascinating admission to say, I'm a longtime NHL player and I wasn't in the shape that I needed to be in to play this style with this much skating. So both these coaches ask a lot. Both of them will get you pumped up, and they both have a lot to play for.
Absolutely. The Golden Knights plus 38 goal differential since March 30th. That's the best in the league. Plus 27 even strength goal differential since that March 30th date. Best in the NHL. So again, this has been a 2-month trend where they're playing high-level elite hockey. And obviously the record under Torts speaks for itself. And yeah, I think really, I texted Torts yesterday. I said, I won't text you again once the game starts, but I'm just confirming. I'm writing this little story for ESPN about how much did the Four Nations and Olympic as an assistant coach, right? Because your role changes as an assistant. You almost become a buddy as a player. He was more, he had that he's a grandfather age for some of these guys in their mid-20s, right? At his age, just very early in grandfather stage for a 20 or 25-year-old. But your role's different. You're like a sage. You're like a wise old guy back there, and you can smile more. And I text to make sure that you weren't an assistant coach since 2000 with the Rangers. I'm not missing anything. That you didn't go to the World Championships or something. I wanted to make sure he had not been an assistant at Four Nations since the Rangers in 2000. And he says, yes, that's true. And then we exchange a couple things. How's the family? He always asks about your family. It's his first question he ever asks. And so just to confirm. And so, yeah, I think Frank, maybe he just looked at behind the bench, had a little different perspective. Maybe he enjoyed having that kind of relationship. And then going to Vegas, obviously he respects the owner. The owner is a West Point guy. Torts had a tie on. You that comes from the owner. He did not wear a tie in Columbus. He did not wear a tie in Philadelphia. He was cold. It was the vest. He wanted to stay comfortable and warm. But it's different there, right? And I think it kind of suits him well. I think he enjoyed that the owner made him put a tie on, and that he had seen Eichel and Hanifin at the Olympics. So at least he had two familiar guys who knew his role there. So he's like, maybe I should keep keeping that role for now, and then eventually I can step on them. But like you said, pick my spots. Don't come in right away, guns blazing.
And he's picked it as well as anyone. Like I said, the perception to understand there's only so much I can do here. I mean, the reality is when you come in with 8 games left in the season, they're making a change for a reason. And with that, he could have been out in the first round. And this is all she wrote. They move on and conduct a coaching search, and they're on to the next guy. Who knows? That's how life can play out. Wanted to throw this at you. Having done studio work with John Tortorella as recently as March, as you tweeted this morning, I know you're not shocked that he got another crack because he was so interested, right, but that he's had the success that he's had and this team has played as well as they have, has that floored you at all?
Well, just because they had like you said, a 74 game sample size of being ordinary, but you realize, geez, Stone, Marner, Eichel, Theodore's had like a quietly really elite year again, especially as a defender. He's kind of picked that up since the Olympics. So certainly the team was there. They weren't getting goaltending. But again, I guess the one reason I would think, well, maybe he could have picked up Carter Hart's game because he was in touch with him the last 2 years. He was almost like a mentor to him, trying to keep his head right. So that was a relationship. But there was one guy who was going to feel empowered by Torts, and I'm sure they all did, because that's a huge decision to fire your coach, a Stanley Cup winning coach with 8 games to go. That's going to get everybody's attention. But if one guy, so I'm sure they all were lifted and felt a sense of either guilt or pleasure as well to have a new guy in charge. He clearly wanted it, I think. But it would be Hart who would feel emboldened and feel, I got to play for this guy. Like he's been there for me, and whether it's inspiration or whatever, that's happened. But yeah, certainly that record has to surprise you a little bit. But yeah, as it turned out, I was the last one to do some TV with Torts, and this go around anyway, if he ever does it again. We were doing a Blues Oilers game late night, and he was breaking down defensive plays of the Oilers need to do better. And he goes, God, I miss coaching. I want to coach. And we got him going to the board more, breaking down plays. You could tell that really got his juices flowing, and boom, it happened. And here he is now in the final. And it's wow. Really, really exciting. So yeah, the coaching aspect is a big part of this.
19-4-1 since taking over. And it's amazing. You mentioned the Oilers and you're doing a Blues Oilers game. I mean, Connor McDavid said it after they lost in round 1 to a team that Vegas then went on to beat in 6 games in the Anaheim Ducks. And he said, we were mostly average all year. I mean, There was not really anything separating this Vegas Golden Knights team from the Edmonton Oilers in the regular season. The only reason they won the division is because they got that last bump from John Tortorella, 7-1, when the Anaheim Ducks dropped the ball. So they win the Pacific, and I don't know if Vegas ownership and management was sitting there going, with 95 points, they would have missed the playoffs in the East if this is a championship caliber contending team that all of a sudden just gets hot at the right time.
Yeah, and I think that as we look at the roster there, the big thing is for me, the 3 keys: Carter Hart playing elite net. That's going to make any team better. William Karlsson's return as an elite second line defending face-off center who can create. And Thomas Hertl waking up and being once again a force like he was as a Shark. He was a playoff monster with San Jose. He's become a playoff monster. They have the 4th line. They always have a 4th line. They do a great job of that. They got Smith and Dowd. So now they have a great identity 4th line that can start periods. They don't mind if they're out there against the other team's top line. That will not bother them at all. It really makes it easy as a coach. All 4 of these lines could be against the first line of Carolina, the second line of Carolina, the third line of Carolina, or the 4th line of Carolina. All of them. That's what makes Vegas so deep and dangerous in my mind. And as we kind of continue on now with the breaking down of this final and kind of getting in the guts of it, a big question for Carolina, Frank, is can they win without the top line going? Basically, Jarvis, Aho, and Svechnikov. You mentioned 13 games, just times 6 on their stats. That gets you to 78 games, just to give you kind of a full season idea. You know, Jarvis is having an 18-goal season in the playoffs. Aho's having a 24-goal season. That's not bad. Svechnikov, 18-goal season. If you kind of prorate this out to a full regular season, you'd like your stars to match their regular season production. They are not, of course, and that's the question is. And one reason why they're winning without them is because the Stankoven line has been stupid with a 70.7 expected goal rate when they're on the ice, outscoring the opponents 12-4. So that's how they're doing it. As long as Stankoven, Hall, and Blake keep doing that, then they're fine. But if they don't, Frank, and that's going to be a question, can that second line get inside on Vegas, right? Because that's harder than those other 3 teams.
Well, they're also facing a Vegas defense that's better than I think any that they've seen in these playoffs. So the way that Shea Theodore has defended, you've mentioned that and how good he's been. Rasmus Anderson and Noah Hannafin, the familiarity that those 2 guys have as that second pair is fantastic. I'm a big believer in the Hall Stankoven line, that they can continue to play with Jackson Blake as well as they have during this entirety of the postseason. And it's great to get contributions from Nick Ehlers while Jordan Stahl and Jordan Martinook do the dirty work. And Mark Jankowski has chipped in with the odd massive goal that you called in OT. I don't think they can win this series without that top line getting on the board and being an impact line. It's too easy to take one line and try and shut them down. And if you're Vegas, you'd try and probably key in on that Hall Stankoven line. That's your big concern. That's your matchup problem. Aho's line has been willing to play defense and to do all the things necessary to win. And it's great that they've taken that posture at times because they've been so complete. But man, they got to produce. You need to get the Jarvis boys down here to Raleigh. I don't know if they're going to be in attendance for game 1, all of his buddies, because he's got to get on the score sheet. That line has to score, or else I think Carolina is going to be in big trouble. They're going to have gotten all the way here and sputtered out because they didn't get the full contribution of their lineup.
And what I love about this matchup too, Frank, is that each team has a guy on the third line who's dangerous. Ehlers is a top line player. Mark Stone is a top line player, but they're on the third line. And if they get a matchup or something against a decor, that's really where the matchups are, basically. Because like I said, 4 lines, both teams, all 4 lines, you're not really concerned who's out there. You're never, it's more the D pair, maybe a D pair you get a certain line against. That's when you might have your chance. Obviously, defensively, the Gostis pair and a Keeshan pair, that might be someone you could possibly take advantage of. Miller has been the best defenseman in the playoffs. He is Conn Smythe worthy. If he gets a few goals in the final and continues to shut people down and outscore them like he has, he could possibly taste that Conn Smythe if Freddie Anderson is maybe ordinary and there's 4-3 games. I think this is a low scoring series, Frank. I really do. And it's going to come down to that. And we could have multiple overtime games.
We're going to have to speculate in a little bit.
I like it. All right. Frank, speculate to accumulate pick coming up. But first, so that's the Carolina viewpoint. Can the top line produce? And if they do, is that a big difference maker? Then there'll be too much to handle for Vegas. But Vegas, one way you can counter that, you have to still get good goaltending from Carter Hart. That's number one. But number 2 is special teams. Can the Vegas power play stay hot? They're 4th in power play percentage. It's at 24%. That's good. On the road, 21%. They were just 2 for 11 against Colorado, 18%. That was their lowest of the 3 rounds. They were 20 against Utah. They were 33 against Anaheim. They were scorching, but they're scoring power play goals in each series. And obviously Carolina does not, but Carolina is an elite team when it comes to killing penalties. And this is a great matchup. When that arm goes up in the air tonight for the first time, McCauley and Rooney are your referees tonight. Wes won't be afraid to call one early. Watch too many men on the ice, people. So we could have an early power play, Frank, and that would be very interesting to see how it looks, right? You can't tell with one, but you get an idea how a team's going to approach a PK and a PP.
I think Vegas has a pretty significant advantage when it comes to special teams entering this final. You see their power play here. It's nearly double the efficiency of the Carolina Hurricanes. And part of that is, or at least helps explain for Carolina, their top line hasn't been productive offensively at even strength. And same thing pretty much for the most part on the power play. Their penalty kill, as you mentioned, though, has been elite at nearly 93%. So can they slow down that Vegas power play that's had some success? And also watch out for Vegas's PK with 4 shorthanded goals scored in these playoffs. That brings their net penalty killing percentage way up above 90%. With how well they've killed and been dangerous on the kill. So I think that's going to go a long way in determining if Vegas can get a few power play goals in this series. I don't know what the number is, maybe 3. That's enough to win you a couple games and be a key differentiator.
And again, while Carolina may have had a good path, and one reason why maybe that power play percentage is down a bit, is they have gone against good goalies. I mean, in this, Linus Ullmark is a Conn Smythe winner who was unbelievably outstanding. Vladar was among the best of the postseason goalies in save percentage this spring. He was very, very good. And obviously, Jakub Dobeš was Superman in net. I mean, he just did the best he could as Carolina slowly, you mentioned, the back-to-back 7-game series, the youth, the youngest team. And even I think that pregame ceremony in Montreal took a lot out of those young players. I think it was almost too much for them. And that's where they'll gain experience. The crowd, the expectation, that pregame emotional. I think they were drained half the time by the time the game started because it was almost too much. And maybe that's something they can learn from. But Dobeš was outstanding. So certainly Carolina has seen good goalies. And in fact, Carter Hart, Frank, is the smallest of the 3 goalies they saw. They will see more net in this series. Vladar is a giant. Ullmark 6'5". Dobeš is 6. Those are big goalies. Carter Hart isn't that big goalie. He's more athletic, but they'll see more twine when they're coming down against Carter Hart.
They will, but he's probably more technically sound than all of those guys as well.
Clearly,
so that's going to be something. But Carolina, for the test of time under Eric Tulsky, as they've built this team, they're a shot volume team. It's volume. Get as many pucks on net as possible. And if you don't have the puck, work relentlessly to get it back, pressure in all situations in all areas of the ice. So, look, that between special teams and Carolina's top line, I think those are the two big question marks heading into the series.
All right, well, let's hit prediction time then. I think we covered this perfectly. Hit you all the key points in this matchup. Again, Carolina through 3 rounds, 60.7% expected goals. That's a huge number. How don't they finish this off? Well, obviously, Freddie Anderson gets hurt. Freddie Anderson becomes average. That's one way, but this is a tough one. It just seems like also, Frank, and I'll go first, in some senses, you have to be careful playing this game. In a lot of ways, it seems like it's Carolina's year. Again, you really shouldn't make your predictions in life based on feelings, as we know. You want your mind to be stronger than your feelings. That's very important in life, kids. Whether you're going through high times or low times, mind stronger than feelings. But you sense a little bit of that. Obviously, the way they pour through the Eastern Conference, like I mentioned, against 3 good goaltenders. These were not cupcake goaltending games. They went to overtime. They earned this 12-1 record. It could have gone the other way in overtime, but they've been great in overtime. That's why they have the record they do. But there's something about those 4 lines of Vegas, Frank, down the middle matchups. They don't have to worry about a bad matchup. Can those guys get inside Vegas? Because we know how good they are at that. Those defensemen can skate. They can defend. The goalie's been outstanding. That is the one question mark, though. I still think there's a chance he could get maybe overwhelmed, especially against this team. So that it's iffy, but I just look at those 3 centers and really those 4 centers of Vegas, and I just think they're a shade better than Carolina. And I don't think Vegas can win a Game 7 in Carolina. I do think the Hurricanes would win a Game 7 there. So that's why I got it. If I think Vegas has a chance and is slightly better because of those centers and Eichel and Carlson and Dowd and now Sissons, who's become a face-off monster too, I got Vegas in 6.
Okay. I got Carolina in 7, and I agree with a lot of the points that you've made, but it's not so much a feel for me. There is part of this that does feel like it's Carolina's year, but I think some parts of what their team is have been disrespected. Like we talked about this a few weeks ago. I raised the question, and it's not that you poo-pooed the idea of it, but I said at the time, I think Carolina has the best defense 1 through 6. Like we're talking about Keandre Miller as a Conn Smythe candidate, and your other pair has Jacob Slavin and Jalen Chatfield on it. And then you go to your third pair, and there's Alex Nikishin, who's been fantastic, and Shane Gostisbehere brings his own element, and he's found a way to compete in Rod Brindamore's system, and he can get shots off from the point and score you a big goal like he did against the Montreal Canadiens in round 3. I think Carolina has the best defense. I think Vegas has the edge in net with Carter Hart. I think he's played better over these last 11 games than Freddie Anderson has. It's not that Anderson has struggled. He's given up 20 goals in 3 rounds. It's been crazy what Freddie Anderson has done. But I get where you're at with the centers. And if that first line or top line can get it together, I think that's going to give Carolina the juice that they need and their ability to stun their opponent, which I think they have that chance to do, given that they've only played each other twice this season. They have that chance to do. It's a real wake-up call to play as relentless as Carolina is in your face. Vegas is going to have to respond by thinking their way through it around the ice. They're capable with Mitch Marner and Jack Eichel and Mark Stone and Nick Dowd. There's really, really smart hockey players on this Vegas team. I just think Carolina is slightly better, slightly deeper.
It's close. Like you said, can those little Carolina players get inside? That's going to be a big thing because we know when you can't, it's hard to score. We saw it from the younger guys for Montreal throughout the playoffs. They couldn't quite get inside, so some of their numbers were down for a while, especially 5-on-5. And for Vegas, really, Frank, with that forecheck that's coming early tonight, can they exit the zone with the puck, right? Are they going to be flipping it out, glass, flipping it out, glass? Or, and that's where Marner and Stone are so good on the breakout, right? They make those nifty little passes to help the breakout to enter your zone with the puck. Because when teams against Carolina, Frank, they can't get shots on goal because they can't exit the zone with the puck. And they're always just flipping and giving it right back to Carolina's defense. So that's early on. That'll be something interesting to watch. That's why I think it could be low scoring. I'm sure Vegas does make sure they don't turn it over early, right? So they might be flippy dippy doopy 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 doop 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 out there. And so it could be, 0-0 after one. And then we're really afraid to give up that first goal the longer you go. And then when you do score that first goal, that team might really start to clamp. So it just seems to me it's trending towards that for low scoring stuff. And again, Frank, we're going to speculate to accumulate at the end of the show. We'll see where Frank's mind is and where he's thinking he can make some profitability. But yeah, I think it's going to be, and like you said, I like what you mentioned about the rest. I think these teams are fresh. These first 5-10 minutes, it's a great crowd in Raleigh. It's summertime. It's warm. They'll be tailgating. They'll be lubricated with the 8 o'clock Eastern start. There's extra lubrication in the parking lot. Sun sets later. Oh, man, all the makings, Frank, all the makings.
Sign me up. Can't wait. You're getting me excited just thinking about it.
All right. Yeah, 8 o'clock is so late. It's like, oh, man, I wish it started at 7. All right, let's ask the YouTube chat. It must be on fire. Can you look at the YouTube chat when you're on campus there in Raleigh?
I am. Jay Kaniak. Good luck to him and his Canes. He's in our chat every day. A couple fans are in here saying, hey, look, this Carolina team, this is a great comment. If I could find it again, it said Carolina's a one-dimensional team, but they nail that one dimension. They have absolutely mastered that dimension impeccably. I thought that was really well said. A lot of predictions, thoughts, but a few people have asked the question, Frank, any chance you could provide just some info on the Matthew Barzal rules and also general Islander news? Do you think we could see a trade soon? I know Pierre LeBrun reported that they are actively trying to clear some cap space. I have not heard Matthew Barzal connected to anything. My thought process, and again, this is just totally my opinion. I don't know exactly what the Islanders are going to do. I haven't touched base on that file yet, but will now after the question. We've talked about this a million times. It's so hard to find difference makers. You have one in Matthew Barzal. Why would you give him up? So you want to accumulate more of those. You need that offensive push once you have Matthew Schaefer on the back end, and they went out and acquired Braden Shen to try and help with that. Let's see what he can do with a couple years left on his contract. I think the Islanders want to be aggressive, but I don't see them going the other direction and moving a player who's still in his 20s out like Matthew Barzal that can be that 80-plus point player.
Yeah, got to be dangerous there, but you never know. Again, Matthew Darch has had he's now been evaluating players. He has his own opinion, and his is the only one in the end that matters, and he's going to try to find winning players. Obviously, he has a new coach, Peter DeBoer, who might have an opinion on the player that he's listened to, and that's part of it as well.
Yeah, and Jim chimes in here as well. Frank, if the Islanders trade Barzal's $9 million cap hit, while they traded for over 12 combined million of Palat and Shen, they better get a young haul of players or assets back. That would be horrible. I tend to agree.
Yeah, and that would be the idea, I think. They do have some good draft picks coming, young fellas coming. I'm sure they wouldn't mind a few more. They probably need a stable because they all don't work out. But I think that would be the trade that would look like. Mm-hmm. All right, #hockey. Finnish Conquerors welcomed home, Frank.
Man, I know it doesn't mean a lot here in North America, that world championship, but to the European countries, it really is a big deal. It's one of the most watched games all year long in Europe, and our Finnish friends have had lots to celebrate with that team welcome home. Not only did they get the fighter jet escort on their flight back, but the way that 80,000 people have flooded into Helsinki, and you can hear a little bit of it here, massive celebration, and to watch them all sing their national anthem in unity, pretty amazing stuff. So love to see this. Again, it doesn't register on our Richter scale here, but this is a big old party in Finland, and love to see it.
Excellent. Well, congrats. And there's Barkov. Last time we saw him raise a trophy was at the Winter Classic, dancing around with the Stanley Cup, dressed in all white. That was a good Miami Vice look. And now he can do a legitimate one and that's great, man. Finland's a proud country. That's a good celebration there for a World Championship trophy.
Pretty awesome.
Good stuff. All right. I've been waiting for this because when Frank speculates, I don't want to know until live. I want to get the live reaction to what he's thinking. Where's his angle to make a few shillings? So Frank, the floor is yours. Speculate to accumulate. Who do you like? Oh,
so we're actually feeling kind of the same thing. So I if you've noticed and if you've played along, I have been riding the Canes to score first in the first period for a few games in a row now. But I like no goals in the first 10 minutes. It's not an incredibly juicy payout at plus 130, but I think there's nerves in a game like this with the buildup. I think there's going to be a feeling out process of these two teams trying to figure each other out. And as loud as it is, I could just see them kind of settling in a little bit and playing very safe through these first 10 minutes to try and figure out the pace and what this is going to be like in the Stanley Cup final. So I'd expect safer, more cautious hockey to start. Again, just a hunch. Don't know anything. This is how I'd look at it and play it.
And again, all it takes is one turnover, as you know, especially again, you can't practice against a team like Carolina. You can't practice against Jordan Martinook unless, they could say, hey, Barbashev, kind of like in football, a scout team, Barbashev, you be Martinook. Okay, here he comes. Please don't hit Shea Theodore too hard, but give them the idea of what it's going to feel like because that's what's cool, Frank, too, is they each have that same kind of player, right? Barbashev and Martinook are very similar type of players who kind of intimidate defensemen because they go through the end boards when they hit you.
Mm-hmm. There's no intensity quite like it. So I can't wait to see it. Maybe one of those hits or that pressure produces a turnover that puts a goal on the board early, which is how Carolina generally is able to score. I just think we might see a little bit more cautious hockey to start.
And then the combination, obviously, if there is a turnover, you have two goaltenders playing great. So they have a chance to make that save and cover up for their teammate who perhaps made a turnover or a bad bounce off a skate or a leg. Again, anything can happen. That's why the task is always so difficult. But he's up a big plus 19.1 units this season, Franklin is, and no goals in the first 10 is his call for tonight. All right, the last word of this Frankly Hockey Playoff Edition, the Cup Final. There's nothing like the emotions of the Cup Final. Obviously, for a player in real time, a coach, an owner, the fans at the arena, but also the way it gives people a chance to create art, the videos, and the great messages that you can send out, Frank, which helps us as fans feel the emotions of the Cup.
There's really nothing quite like it. And we saw this after the Eastern Conference final. Keandre Miller, his team advances, and this is just a quiet moment after the game. He's not doing this for the cameras. He doesn't even know that they're rolling. He's got his newborn in his hands, and he's in tears. Can't believe that this is what's happened for me over the last calendar year, leaving the New York Rangers, the only team I've known in the NHL, to come to Raleigh and to experience this type of success and to see the tears. I mean, it was incredibly moving just watching this play out after the game and what was supposed to be a quiet moment that no one saw. But just a confession from my part, I can't help myself on the night that the team wins the cup. So us media were kind of put in the bullpen, and we wait, and the cup gets awarded, and the players all hoist it, and then they open up the Zamboni doors, and us media get to walk on the ice and do our interviews and talk to the champions right there. We don't get to go in the locker room to see the celebration, but we get to see them interact with their family and hug their parents and their kids and their wives. To see all that happen, I'm actually like choked up the whole time to see a player work so hard for the entirety of their career and to have their dream play out right in front of them and right in front of you. To see what it means, it's actually it overtakes you. So I have to like check myself as a journalist and a media member on the ice. Like I'm like holding back tears every time. There's something about this, and you'll see it tonight. I don't know if they're gonna do it. They've done it at a couple cup finals, but right before puck drop, they bring the cup on the ice to basically say, hey, this is what you're playing for. And it's everything. And it's for eternity. And as Rod Brindamore said, you win, and those guys are your brothers forever. I can't wait to see how this plays out. the emotion that it brings out of you, it's unlike anything else.
Yeah, I love that picture of Condre Miller. It just kind of, brings back so many memories for me. I'm a January birthday like him. I was 26 years old when I held my son. That's right there, Brett Buccigross. I was 26 when he was born. That's his number to my left over there. Yeah, Keandre, we're built the same. We're built more like basketball players than hockey players. So really, that really made my emotions flood as well to see that shot of him and the joy I remember holding Brett, and then the joy he has there holding his son. So that is so awesome. And like you said, game one, I hope they bring the cup out just like, okay, here's what we're playing for. You'll see it again when one of these two teams wins it. That would be great television, great theater. The Carolina Hurricanes, great job by their social media group putting out the Jim Valvano speech over the images of the Carolina Hurricanes. That was outstanding. If you haven't seen that yet. There it is. Oh, good job. Yeah. 1983 National Championship banner, Jim Valvano, and so go check that out as well. And before we let you go, Frank, Gary Bettman's going to speak today to the media. That's always very fun. I think he likes it because he knows that this media will come after him with a couple of questions. I'm sure there'll be a succession plan question. There is every year. And you wonder at some point there's going to be one, right? Outside of that or including that, what do you think might be talked about? It might get some headlines later today on X when you're tweeting them out.
I'm sure there will be a CTE question as it relates to Claude Lemieux and that awful suicide. I'm sure there will be questions about a lot of stuff, regional rights television deals and how that might impact the league's business, how they recently restructured the league's headquarters and front office in terms of who reports to who and trying to capitalize on some of these media opportunities. That's been out there as well. And now I got a couple hours. I got 3.5 hours before that press conference begins to concoct a question or two to ask the commissioner.
All right. Well, hopefully you can go get some lunch. It's tough, the arena, to go get lunch and come back. Although traffic will be fine, so you can do that. You can zip around town. There's a couple spots 15 minutes away. Get yourself a good lunch. Come back. Get the news conference. And then will you go back and nap, or you just hang around a rink till the game?
No, it's commissioner at 4:30 and probably just hang out. Too many tailgaters.
Traffic and stuff. All right. So once again, just congratulations, Zach Werenski. He's your Norris Trophy winner. And again, I'm not a big memorabilia guy, but this is one of my kind of favorites. It's a Bobby Orr autograph Victoriaville Pro hockey stick. It was actually at a Dropkick Murphys event. They went around and put these sticks in your golf bag, and you went in to register, get some lunch, you come out, there's a Bobby Orr autographed hockey stick in your golf bag already, put upside down. It was awesome. And so on this day that Zach Werenski wins his first, just a reminder that Bobby Orr won 8 in a row. He won 8 Norris trophies in a row. Number 4, Bobby Orr, the New England legend.
Amazing.
Parry Sound, Ontario. All right, let's get it on. It's on like Donkey Kong. The Stanley Cup final at long last begins tonight on ABC, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Frank will be there in the arena documenting it for us. And then tomorrow, of course, back on Frankly Hockey to get his thoughts and talk about game 1 of the Stanley Cup final here on Frankly Hockey Playoff Edition. Victory Plus, YouTube, and X. We thank you so much for watching. Frank, enjoy the game. Enjoy your afternoon. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same place.